Hi, it's Candace Sarney. I am here today with Joel Bruce Wallach. We're going to be talking about the mental and emotional effects of the lockdown on the human psyche and the human heart. So, Joel, talk to us today. We're going to be using the air element disc, the Divine Essence
Mm.
air element disc, and how people can use this during this period of lockdown to help them deal with their boredom, frustration, their low
Mm.
mood, sadness, some irritability.
Mm.
Can you show us how we can use the air element to work with those issues?
So, Candace, all the issues you just mentioned involve limitation, constriction, tension, which is the opposite of expansion, which makes you feel that you're more connected with the universe, you can breathe easier, you don't feel things pressing in on you,
You feel a little
and we're
free.
much more free,
Mhm.
which is significant in a lockdown because lockdown on so many levels makes you feel small, compact, stuck, not moving
Constricted. In a box.
in a box. So when you're in a box on a certain level, how do you expand? And the answer is with the expansive element known as the air element. Now, when we talk about air element, we're not talking about, you know, oxygen or the atmosphere. We're talking about the airy quality that we associate with the atmosphere. And it's a vibration, and this disc has been tuned to help foster and cultivate the airy vibration within you. Again, it's not about air, it's about the expansive light quality. And when your fingertips interact with the disc, the energy pathways called meridians interact with that quality of expansion. And it's very subtle. It's not going to feel like you're being pumped up like a bicycle tube. It's a feeling of flowy lightness that makes things a little bit lighter. So when you interact with it, you start to get that feeling. And the feeling is happening because your body and your aura, your energy field, are starting to get a more spacious feeling, which means that even under lockdown or even under any conditions, you start to feel more of your natural state. And it's important to recognize that your natural state is always part of the universe. It's one of the things about lockdown. It makes you feel I'm separate from the universe. It's kind of a depressing thought.
Well,
But
that's the whole isolation thing, that you're
yes.
cut off.
Hmm. So when you start to get into a more expanded state and you feel lighter, you don't feel the pressure. And you can recognize that your aura is actually in many ways bigger than your house where you live because it's part of the flow, it's part of the universal consciousness. So you tune into it and it gently brings you to that place. Now, let's say you wanted to bring more expansion to your brain because it's really easy to start thinking in a certain way and to even physically feel that there's pressure here. And so you can place it here. And there's several things we can do. And I'll take you through a couple of quick exercises. Swirl like this. This starts to open up the flow. And you can do it touching the skin or a little bit off the skin, either way. And you can do a pulse, as you were just doing. And it starts to lighten up this area, often called the third eye. And it opens up your intuition, and it releases what happens to the third eye when your forebrain is really focused in a negative way. It's almost as if it closes off your psychic options and it closes off your intuition. And you just think about the problem, the problem, the problem.
Right.
And when you open that up, then you start to think about the opportunity, the solution, the possibility,
Right.
and just the
Right.
feeling of lightness. And when you do a big pulse, that starts to open up the flow in the brain with a more expanded feeling. And I should point out, one of the reasons that people drink and do drugs is that they want lightness. But there are side effects with drinking drugs. So when you get more of that expansion, it really helps. You can do it for the top of your head, which is where the crown center is, which is what helps you connect with your intuition and with the universe, especially.
Well, as you were talking about how the constriction of the third eye when you get so focused. I mean, I know. I sometimes I go to my desk and I start working, and I'm out here when I start, but at the end of the day, I'm like right here. I'm so focused, and this literally I can just feel that intensity just kind of lifting as I do this.
Now let's bring expansion to your heart, or your heart center. And we're going to do another technique. You're holding it here with one hand, and with the other hand, the fingertips will trace a circular shape directly on the disc, and that gets the disc activated, and it starts sending waves of airy element, you might call it, or the quality of airiness, through the body, and it releases tension, because tension is constriction, and expansion is the opposite. And you can give it some little taps, and that also activates the tiny copper circuits that are in the disc. So there's more flow, more expansion, and it starts to unwind a lot of the accumulated tension. And the goal is to unwind some tension each day. If you try and remove all tension instantly, it's kind of a big goal that might not be accomplishable, but a little bit each day is a good thing.
What some of the studies on this subject of the lockdown show that with parents are having more effects because they're at home with their children full time, and so their tension, their stress, their irritability levels are like through the roof. And this is just something that's really simple that they can do, after, Johnny's, screaming and yelling and they're trying to do a Zoom call for work or, whatever's going on. This is something you can just take a moment out. You don't have to spend an hour or 30 minutes or 15 minutes. You literally can just take a moment or two, and just clear out what's going on. Very quickly, just take a moment to lift some of that stress and tension.
You mentioned Zoom calls. What if you are on a Zoom call and you want more expansion because you're starting to get stressed or tired or constricted? So with one of your hands, you could hold this, and note how I've got my fingers on one side and I've got my thumb on the other side. And I'm going to do a subtle circular motion, which gets it even more activated. You can do this out of view of the camera.
Oh, that's really great if you're talking to someone and it's a tense call.
Yeah, it helps hold your body in a more expanded state so that you aren't gripping tighter and tighter. Now, the effect that has, because everything is energy, it starts to have a positive vibration effect for the person to whom you are speaking.
Wow.
It makes you more creative, more open to solutions,
Yes.
not stuck on problems.
Right, and not so rigid about your own ideas.
Yes, opens you up so you can say, oh, you just said this. And maybe in the past you would have thought, silly idea. But now you can say, let me try and say your idea back to you to make sure I understand it.
Right.
And then you can ask for more clarifications, and you can say, See, what we don't realize when we think somebody is opposed to us, they aren't opposed, but we haven't yet had a sufficient conversation to to see, well, what do we have in common here? And would you be willing to try my take on your idea?
Mm-hmm.
But they often will be because we like our own ideas. And so people don't want to hear bad idea, wrong, makes them feel, "Hmm." If you say, that's a really interesting idea, I can see this possibility. And then you talk about the way you might do it, but utilizing
Right.
essential elements of their idea.
Mm-hmm. Joel,
So
that's great. Love this. Just love it.
makes life easier, more expansive, less constricted.
There we go. Well, until next time, Joel.
Mm.
For more training videos like this, and to ask your Powerforms questions, join our social forum at powerformshealing.com. It's free. powerformshealing.com.